I want to do a quick recap on the strategies and mostly looking at the strategies from a competitive perspective. What's important is to understand that the strategy belongs to a bigger idea, which are the objectives. So the objectives are explained through the strategies, and the strategies are explained through the tactics, and the tactics are explained through the actions. So it goes from the bigger picture to the smaller picture. So the strategies are up in the big picture. The idea is that you need to think strategically, meaning you think at a higher level, which are the long-term broad perspective of thinking to satisfy your customers by creating something, by making a big change that needs to be implemented by smaller actions, and eventually to keep the customer coming back. The basic strategies are also called the hands-off strategies, and these are these four, looking at either going after the same markets or going after different markets, using the same product or creating a new product. So if you sell the same product to the same customers, that's called market penetration. So you don't change anything, you just try to sell more of something that you already sell to the same people. And usually that could be implemented by lowering the prices or changing the distribution, having maybe the product sold in more places. If you decide to sell to the same customers new edition of this product, this will be called product development. So it's much more involvement because you will have to create a product. If the product is slightly changed, meaning that you have a yogurt and then you have a flavored yogurt and then you keep adding flavors, these might not be product development because it's not enough of a new product to be a product development. Or if you're changing the size of the packaging, that would also be market penetration because it's not enough. So product development requires a larger change than just a mere change of size. It needs to be significantly different. It needs to be a new version with a large number of changes in order to be a new product development. New product development is very involving, and new product development is very common in the industry, and it's required in order to keep being an innovative company. Market development is when you try to sell the product to a new target. So your product is really good, you're satisfied with it, but you're thinking that you could broaden the market by having additional type of customers that could be buying the product. So maybe you're selling the product to younger people and decide that you can sell it to older people, and that would be market development. Obviously, if you're selling in one country and selling it in another country, that's the sort of the stereotype image that one can use in order to understand what's market development. But it doesn't have to be just changing total market. It can be just a different age group, or it can be a different income, or it can be a different gender. Diversification, even though it seems to be just a new product for just a new market, it has to be a significantly new market and a significantly new product in the sense that you're changing categories. So you were selling shampoo and now you're selling ice cream, and that's significantly different, and therefore that would be what's called diversification. Other strategies include the basic competitive strategies, such as trying to have the lowest price as possible. This is called overall cost leadership, trying to sell the product to a very specific group of customers, a narrow group of customers, that's called focus, trying to have a product that is very different than the competitors. So by this difference, eventually you will be going after a specific group of customers. That's called differentiation. And then the middle of the road strategy is when you're trying to be a product that is very acceptable, sort of universal for everyone to like, not focusing on a specific group, not trying to have a product that is very different, not trying to be the most expensive or the cheapest. Is you're just trying to be the product that fits for everyone. Other strategies, which you'll be trying to be competitive by trying to get an advantage, having a leadership position or offering more values, trying to satisfy the customers from specific actions, such as being the one that's the best operations in order to satisfy the customers, and this is called operational excellence, or having the best relationship, being the closest, almost being sort of a club member or members only, or having a large number of people that follow and that are very much caring for what you do. This is called customer intimacy. Or if you are trying to have the product that is the most innovative and constantly innovate in your product category and be perceived as the category disruptor, the one that brings the most innovations, that would be product leadership. Finally, the last strategies that one see oftentimes used are also the basic competitive marketing strategies, also known as the Porter strategies. In this situation, you would have market leadership, where you're trying to have the largest product being sold in your market, the market challenger, where you're trying to very much be the other choice beside the leader. So it would be sort of like Avis versus Hertz. And then you have the market follower, which is the company that will not have the resources in order to be a leader nor a challenger, and eventually will try to learn as much as possible from the leading companies. And then you have the market nicher, which is the company that's very much like the focus, the one that's really going after much smaller group of consumers and understanding who they are and offering the best product for them. So being competitive means that you have to study the strengths and weaknesses of your competitors, and that method is called benchmarking. There are many things that you can do in benchmarking, but the easiest thing to start with is looking at their strengths and weaknesses. Eventually trying to understand what are their objectives, what are their strategies, what are their tactics, what are their policies, what campaign they're going to launch, and all of this is seen by monitoring constantly what your competitors are doing, and this is called marketing intelligence. Trying to understand who are their targets and have the best definition of who their targets are in order to sort of compare with your targets, understanding their positioning. So usually that's how they frame their slogan, how they tell to their customers what their strengths are. Then looking at their prices, seeing if where they're higher, where they're lower, which product that they offer more discounts, looking at where do they sell, and if they use direct, indirect, how many intermediaries, what kind of intermediaries, looking at the R&D that they may be spending and the innovation and the frequency of the innovation, looking at the size of their product line, seeing if they have maybe a big width of products, but a minimal depth, or maybe they have the opposite, they have very narrow width, but a large depth. And so looking at how many new products, how many old products, looking at their market share and for the different products they may have. Then looking at how do they communicate, what are the methods and channels that they may be using, and seeing what kind of relationship they have with the trade, their suppliers, the distributors, the other organizations they may be working with in order to get advices, and if they own any of the distribution as well, any level of the distribution, maybe they own the retailing or the wholesaling or both. Benchmarking can be done in your industry, and it should be done in your industry, but then it's also very smart to look at other industries in order to learn some changes or some activities done in other industries in order to maybe borrow or get inspired to try to implement these in your industry. The same thing, looking at overseas and learning from what other companies do overseas, and they may not be your competitor, but they may be your competitor if you were to work in this market overseas. And so you could see by sort of anticipating maybe the future of your market, because there's different maturity of industries, and sometimes you find markets which have more maturity, and so that gives you a little bit of a future forward understanding of the market. So to recap, if you have the corporate strategies, the high level strategies, and here I'm only putting 4 of them, and eventually you have the sub strategies, so the strategies for each one of the P. So are the corporate level strategies and the sub strategies both strategies? They are, but it's just a level of coverage that they have. The corporate strategies are very much covering the entire strategies for the company, versus the sub-strategies are very much focused on strategies for each one of the Ps. Again, it's very important to see the difference between the broader perspective and the narrower perspective. And when you're thinking a broad long-term, you're thinking in terms of strategies. Again, this is the same type of slide, but looking at it from a different angle, if you want, is you have the pyramid, and at the top of the pyramid, you have the strategies that will be covering the entire company. And then as you get lower, you have the strategies that cover each one of the P. To finish, I will talk about the Porter 5 forces. And the Porter 5 forces are not exactly the same as what you do when you're doing the SWOT. They are sort of like the pestle, but it's more of a focused perspective, looking at the pestle from the angle of looking at who will be your competitors and what would the competitors be able to do, and what are the leverage that you would have in going in the market. The pestle is looking at all the different factors. The Porter 5 forces is looking at the interactions of the cost, your prices, your competitors, the direct and indirect competitors, and also the changes that may occur from the facility of anyone to come and compete in your market. So the Porter 5 forces sort of go along with the PESOL, and the Porter 5 forces offer some perspective that are also used in the SWOT analysis, because they sort of give you a flavor of how good are your opportunities and how fit you are in going after these opportunities and also addressing the issues related to threats. So the threats of new entrants, the degree of rivalry, the threat of substitute, this is very much talking about the fact that you may have strengths, but you may also have threats that are coming and they're going to generate some issues for your strengths. So threats of new entrants is how easy it is to join in this industry. Maybe there's not too many licenses, not too many patents, not too many regulations, and therefore there's not too many barriers of entry. And that can be a problem because then you could have suddenly many competitors. The threats of substitutes is it's possible that you're selling a product that right now could be substituted by something that becomes an innovation and people are going after the innovation. The bargaining power of the buyers is, are there many buyers? Are there many brands selling? So it's an issue of supply and demand. The bargaining power of the suppliers, here again, you may be dependent on your suppliers and you may have your competitors also dependent on these suppliers. So the suppliers may be the one that has more power over everyone making these products, and therefore how much do you own the suppliers, how much you buy from the suppliers makes you more dependent. And then the degree of rivalry is the number of competitors that you have in the market. And obviously, the more competitors you have, usually the more problems that you have in trying to get your own market share or large market share. The second P that is oftentimes discussed is the P of pricing. It's the only P that doesn't cost any money. It's actually looking at costs and looking at the impact of money and how to make money. Essentially, you have two prices that you can have, either the highest price or the lowest price. The highest price is how much you can charge the highest price in order to sell the product and make the most profit, and the lowest price is the one that is closest to making no money. As a seller of the product, you want to have the highest price. As a buyer of the product, you want to have the lowest price. So these two are the two extremes. This concept of pricing is based on the idea that there are variable and fixed costs. The fixed costs, they don't change with the number of products that you're making. The more products you're making, the more you have higher variable costs. So the idea is to increase the production of your products, not so much to increase your variable costs, but to reduce the impact of your fixed cost over the prices. So your fixed costs get divided by the number of products that you make, and therefore they become less significant. The total cost is therefore the two costs, variable plus fixed. The idea of increasing the numbers is also supported by the concept of economy of scales. The more you make product, the cheaper the unit cost of making this product, because the more you buy products, supply, the lower the price of each unit because of the volume discount. So you buy more of the raw material or the components, each component becomes cheaper, and then the overall cost of making this product becomes lower. So that's the concept of Fordism, is the more you produce, the cheaper it is to make each thing that you're making. The next concept is the experience curve, is the better you become at producing, the more you produce, the better you become at producing, and the better you become at producing, the more you become efficient, and you optimize the number of production per hour by having more experience. The price elasticity of demand is the concept that people demand may change based on the price. If the price goes up, people buy less. If the price goes down, people buy more. So it's important to see how much do people have a elasticity of demand. The more they react to a small change, the more they are elastic, and therefore you want to be careful in either increasing or thinking about the decreasing of the price, because if you decrease the price, they may be buying more, but eventually it may damage the perception of quality, and then they may be buying less. Or you may realize that by increasing the price, people may also be buying more because they think it is becoming more rare, more special, and maybe it's the price increase is actually explaining the fact that more and more people want to buy the product. So there are 4 strategies in order to define which method of pricing you should use. The first one is called cost-based. The idea behind cost-based is you're trying to think about a specific markup that you want to add to your products. So let's say you are Walmart and you sell 1 million different type of products, and you say every product is going to be whatever is our cost plus 10%. The problem of doing this is that there may be products where you could be making more than 10%, and there may be products where you should be making less than 10%. By doing an overall cost base like this, you're only looking at the markup. So you never know if the markup is the maximum that you should get. It's only based on the arbitrary number. So it's convenient, but it may not be the most optimal. Break-even based is less of an accounting. What I mean by this is the cost base is more of an accounting. The break-even is more of a financial perspective. Is you thinking about how much profits you want to have. So let's say you want to make $100,000 the first month. Is you're going to look at your costs and see how many products you can sell the first month, and then you're going to define what is the price that the product should be sold in order to make this $100,000. So you're going to make a variation of number of units in order to increase the number sold of products or lower the number sold of products in order to reach this $100,000. Trying to reach sort of a profit like this is very often done because of the pressure of investors that you have to pay back. So therefore, you're trying to make sure that you pay back your investors by using the break-even based method, which is the method that you oftentimes see when you're looking at the program Shark Tank, because that's what the Shark think. They think in terms of break-even. The value-based is more of the marketing perspective, which is how much do the customers think, how much do they think it's worth? So it's looking at through the eyes of the customers, the target, but at the same time, the target may have experience with this type of products and already buying these products from your competitors. Therefore, it's not just purely looking at how much do they think it's worth, but how much are they willing to spend for these products. So value-based is more marketing. And then you have the competitor-based, which is also a marketing method by trying to think about the positioning of your brand based on the price and quality perception. But it's less complicated than the value-based, because the value-based is in the eye of the consumers. And sometimes you have big variation of what consumers think the price is for a product. So you have to be very sure to use the perception of your target as the value-based pricing versus the competitors. You don't have as many competitors as you have customers. So it's also much quicker to look at the competitors based. But by looking at the competitor, you may be looking at being higher than your competitor, but it may not be something that you could do. And then you could be trying to be lower than your competitors when your competitors are also not at the right price. So you take a chance, but the market usually gives you the time to react when you're using your competitors' pricing. The other pricing strategy have to do with having the highest price or having the lowest price. So this is what you would wonder when you're launching a new product: is should have the highest price as possible. You know, based on the competitors, we can beat them with this product. It's better. Based on the consumer, they see a higher value, so we could increase the price. And if we try to have the highest price as possible, that would be called the skimming pricing strategy, having the highest price. However, with the skimming pricing strategy, you won't sell as many products, and it may take a while for many competitors to start buying the product. So you would do this if you have a huge innovation. You would do this if you have not too many competitors for the quality and the innovativeness of your product. However, you may also decide to have a penetration pricing, which is a price that would be much lower in order to incentivize and stimulate the market to buy your product, also because that way you would get a large market share and you could lower the interest for your competitors to try to join in this market, because you would have already captured a lot of your customers, and maybe they would be already loyalty, so it would be costing them a lot of money in order to come and compete with you. They won't have to spend the money to launch the product because you've done that, but it will still be a low profit margin, and they may not be too interested to adventure in this, not knowing that they won't make as much money as if they came earlier. So the penetration pricing is to get quick market share, and in order to quickly dominate, in order to make it harder for the next competitors to come and join in. The product line pricing is when you're looking at creating different products in your product line to have different options and level of quality and amount of features in order to offer different prices. The more the product comes with the options, the more it will be expensive. You could be deciding to make money from the options. So everyone gets, there's one standard product and you just pay for every one of the option. And so you have a low margin for the standard product and then a higher margin for the options. Then the captive is when you would be making money from selling some elements that comes with the product, where most of your profit will be from the elements. So you sell printers, and the printers don't cost a lot of money for the customers. You have a very low margin, 10% or less, but they have to use it with toner cartridge. And the toner cartridge, it is a high profit margin that they have to buy regularly. So you make 8% with the printer and you make 200% with the toner cartridge. And that's called captive product pricing. By product is when you're selling a product that comes from the byproduct of what you're making. So you're making furniture that generates some sawdust. Eventually you can get rid of the sawdust, or you could turn the sawdust into some kind of product that could be used by another industry, maybe used by a zoo or pet store or things like this. And then you sell and make some money from this, being before in a position where you are getting rid of it. The bundling pricing is when you will sell a bunch of products together for less than the cost of those products added together. So you could be selling toothbrush and a toothpaste, and each one is worth, let's say, $1. Instead of selling it for $2, you sell it for $1.50. You could be selling season tickets for baseball, and instead of costing $100 per ticket, you will be selling 5 tickets for $400. So what it does, it allows you to sell larger quantities, that allows you to sometimes introduce new products, that allows you to get rid of some of products that are harder to sell because it's a different season. So you sell them in sort of the season where you sell less of these. And it allows you also to reduce your inventory and increase your cash flow. Then competitor-based pricing is by looking at what are the prices from your competitors and just having the price sort of aligned or less or more than them. There's other kind of discounts with the pricing that are very important, where people could get more products when they buy. They could get money for turning in a product that they've used. There could be some promotions. There could be some function of discount by buying larger volumes. The idea is that there are different customers and there are different locations and there are different form of products and maybe different times and seasons where you will be selling the product that you want to adjust in order to be more efficient. Promotional pricing is the fact that you will have some products that will be sold for specific events with lower interest, with bigger warranties, with maybe additional gift free merchandise, with discounts sold at specific events, or maybe some product that you will be selling as a loss leader, which means that you won't make money on selling this product. But at that time, this product will get a lot of attention and will increase the foot traffic or just the traffic to your website, because people will be interested and you would have a deal that nobody else has. The first P that we usually look at for the product mix is usually the P of product. The first P of the 4 Ps or marketing mix that we usually look at are the product mix. The first P of the 4 Ps of the marketing mix is usually the first P of the marketing mix is usually the P of product. So again, there are 4 Ps in marketing: product, price, place, and promotion. And so the first P is usually talking about the product. But what's a product? It's a generic term for goods, services, organization, IDs, peoples, and locations. So you sell a product, but when you say that, it's the generic term. So what do people sell specifically IDs, people, locations, and so forth. A service is therefore a product, but it's a subcategory of the product. It's a more specific description. And a service has specific features, which is that it's intangible, inseparable, variable, and perishable. There are three levels of products. There's the core, what you buy the product for. The actual is the other additional features that you may be buying the product. And then the augmented are the further down elements while you're buying a product. So you buy a car for transportation, but then you have the actual product, which are the power of the car, the comfort of the car, the safety of the car. And then there are the augmented level of the product, which may be the warranties, the financing, the services. There are 4 types of consumer products. There's the convenience, the one that you constantly buy, and you don't see too many difference between the products. You don't think about buying it from something special, such as soap. And then you have the shopping products, which are the product that you will see differences from where you buy this product. You will see differences in pricing. You will start seeing some risk. You won't buy it as often, and you're going to look at the different brands and search for the one that is better suits your budget and your interests and your needs. And so that could be a washing machine. Then you have the specialty products. It's something that you don't buy very often. I mean, maybe a graduation gown or a wedding ring, or maybe buying a luxury car or buying a home. This will become a specialty product. Then you have so for the specialty products, you don't buy it from everywhere. You make a lot of comparison. You're worried about making the wrong decision. So you may ask for more advices. You may try the product, and you would have some relationship with the place where you bought the product. At least you may not have known them before, but you will try to really know these people before you buy from them. The unsought are the products that do not apply for you, because maybe it's a product that serves a purpose that doesn't make any sense for you. The unsought is also the one that you just don't know. You've never heard of chestnut cream, and so you never thought of this, but then once you find out about it, you get interested. It may be unsought as well because you're not the typical target. Maybe life insurance. If you're a teenager, you don't think of life insurance. The product lines have some key terms, and the one that is, I guess, the most common is the width of the product line, which means that how many different products you have in the product line. The depth is how many variations you have in each one of these different products. So you have Procter & Gamble, you're selling some detergent, you're selling some beauty products. So that's 2 different widths, but within the beauty, you may have different variations, and that would be the depth. And the length will be the total number of products that you're selling, and the consistency is what kind of connections, relations there are between all of these products. Like I mentioned, services are defined for being intangible, which means that you cannot touch it. Inseparable, which means that they are manufactured, produced at the same time as they are consumed. That they are variable, which means it's usually produced by a person, so therefore there may be some variations on a day, from day to day. And they're perishable, which means that if they are not consumed at the time of the production, they are going to be lost. So if you're thinking about a concert, you can't store the concert. I guess you could store it and put it in some electronic format, but at the time of the consumption of the concert, you're consuming it at the same time. They're produced by people, and these people are variation. I mean, not every concert has the same level of quality. And if you didn't go to the concert, you missed the opportunity. And that's why sometimes the exclusivity of a concert makes a big difference, because people know that it doesn't not happen all the time. So when you buy a product, you think in terms of the quality. So there's quality from the lowest quality to the highest quality with different features that make the product more interesting, because there's maybe more and more features, or maybe some new features that seem to make the product even better than the previous generation. There's different designs, and there's different shapes. So if we're looking at Apple as a company has been very much describing all of this, providing different features, improving the performance of the product, and at the same time giving some variations in terms of the design of the product, and maybe getting bigger and maybe getting higher performance. So the level of the product is what I just described before. Depending on what you're selling, you will have a different core and then the different elements in order to explain what is the actual product with the different features, maybe the different style and designs, and versus the augmented, which may be the services added to a good, for example. If you're buying a service, there may be the other things. So you're going to a concert, you're not thinking about the food that you will get into the concert, but maybe the food is an augmented element of the product. The 3-4 level of different types of products, I've just described this. The product line, thinking in terms of the width, the depth, the length, and the consistency. And some examples are, if we look again at cars, we will see that there is a width. Here is a width of 3 types of products, and there's a depth where there's a depth of 3. If we look at Procter & Gamble, we see that their width is 5, and if we're looking at shampoo, we'll see that the depth is 2. When you're developing, therefore, this product, you're also thinking about maybe making it better by going more upscale, or maybe making it more popular by minimizing the cost in order to reach more people. And so this is called the product line length in going towards more upscale versus downscale. An example of that is Emporio Armani, who is creating different products with Giorgio, with Armani jeans, with AX, and all of this is products coming from the same company, but with different perspective of the exclusivity and the price. When you're buying a product, the decision is, what are the main attributes? What is the brand? What's the different style of packaging? What's the labeling? And then what are the supports that we offer to this product? Is where can they get the product? How can they get it serviced? What kind of financing do they have? What kind of delivery? What kind of instructions? Packaging is very important, and sometimes that makes the whole reason why someone buys the packaging. It helps to differentiate the product, it protects the product, and it gives another way of consuming the product. If we look at this yogurt, for example, a yogurt that came in the tube was a disruption for the industry because suddenly it could be consumed by a group of people that were not inclined to consume the product. I don't want to eat my yogurt because I need a spoon. It's too many steps. With the tubes, you make it easier for the kids. Pringles found that people wanted to get the same chips, and they wanted some kind of consistency in the chips, and therefore they created a tube where you could get the chips straight from the tube. And this packaging design became a disruption for the chips industry. The marketing mix contains 4 P's, and the P for place really means distribution. So what is distribution? A set of interdependent organizations involved in the process of making a product or service available for use or consumption by the consumer or business users. The idea is that there are intermediaries, and these intermediaries are necessary. Distribution is a business in itself, but it's a specialty. And so this specialty has a cost. And so you want to make sure that this cost is not you, but is spending it, but it's someone else spending it because they may be more effective in spending this money. So this specialty is better off left to someone who is a pro distributor. However, some companies are doing everything. They are doing the manufacturing and the distribution because they are controlling this cost. The functions of the distribution is to collect information and provide information to the market, to promote the product that they're selling as a distributor, to create contacts and customers within the market, to offer these customers a product that is adequate and suitable, so this is called matching, to negotiate prices and volumes with the customers, to help with the logistics, to help the customer eventually from buying from the distributor will get some financing and some risk taking and taking inventory, and eventually having the distributor carry the weight for the manufacturer of this inventory. There are different channel of distribution, there's the one that can be done by the manufacturer, where you have the manufacturer selling directly to the channel, which is called direct channel distribution. This one is effective because you get the customers to buy straight from the manufacturer. The problem is, how do the customers know about the manufacturer? Maybe they know and maybe they can buy directly, but most of the time people would not know about the product, and therefore they would need to buy it from the distributors and or the retailer to some extent. And so that's the job of this intermediary. So you could have multiple different intermediaries between the manufacturer and the consumers. And so the best method is not to say that the more intermediaries, the better, is you need to have the right suitable amount of intermediaries. So sometimes it's better to have less, and sometimes it's better to have more, because each intermediary provides a quality of support. Maybe, and I'm thinking about the luxury industry. In the luxury industry, you have many intermediaries in between because it's very specific to get to the customers. And so you have all of these intermediaries giving quality to the product, getting to the hands of the final consumers. But if your product is a commodity, then you would want to have the least intermediaries as possible. So the sub-strategies of the P of place, there is essentially just a few, something like 5, and these are the 3 out of the 5, which is intensive distribution, you sell it everywhere. Selective distribution, you sell it in half of the places, 50% of the market. And exclusive distribution, you sell it in 1%, 5%. I mean, it's exclusive, so it has to be a low number. You can't find it everywhere, and there's very strict contracts being made between the manufacturer and the final retailer, because there's territories, and these territories are exclusive to who's distributing the product. The 2 other sub-strategies of the P of place are push and pull. Push strategy is when you are, as a manufacturer, incentivizing the distribution channel to carry your product. So you give discounts or volume discount, monetary discount or volume discount to the intermediaries for them to carry more of the product. So the distributors is trying to sell bread, and your bread is 50% of the price than anyone else. So they're going to carry your bread because for them, it's an opportunity to make a higher profit. So they will support you because of the deals that you give it to them. That's push strategy. Pull strategy is when you're selling to the consumers direct, and the consumers are getting an incentive, which is usually the fact that they are becoming knowledgeable about your products, and they're more familiar with your product, that they would want to buy this one. So they buy what they know. So this one is more of a direct communication to the customers, for the customers to be seeking your product. Obviously, this one is very expensive. If you use traditional media, it's expensive. If you use social media, it used to be inexpensive, it's becoming more and more expensive in order to go above the noise of all the people doing social media to be seen. So the best method is to use both, but both require more resources. So what you see most often with the smaller businesses is that they have a social media type of marketing, which is their pull, and then they provide incentive to the distribution channel, which is their push. The major logistic functions are getting the purchase orders and processing them and shipping, storing the product and organizing the inventory, and then moving the products from point A to point Z in the most efficient way, and also the cost associated with all of these logistics and moving the product. So the best way to move the product, it depends on what type of product that you're moving. So some products are very bulky, very heavy. Some products are dangerous. Some products are fragile. Some products are worth a lot of money and therefore requires more safety. And some products are specifically regulated on how they can transport. On all of this has to be taken into account as well, the destination and the timeline that you have. If you have more time, you have less time, and also the requirement in terms of, does it need to go in multiple places at once, or does it go at just one place? So all of this as consideration, and the rail, the truck, water, and pipeline, and air are the 5 most common methods. So again, where do you send it? Is there the destination that is covered by this, all the transportation methods, and maybe not? So you pick the one that are available, the time that needs to happen, the fact that you want to make sure that you meet deadlines because there may be contractual requirements that if you don't deliver by that date, there's a fee that you have to pay or some kind of discount that you have to offer. The fact that there's different costs associated with the different means of transportation, and the fact that this transportation may be more specific to one product and not to another. When you talk about distribution, you talk about the fact that there's a bargaining power between the distributor and the manufacturer. Essentially, there's one that has more power than the other. And for the most part, it has been the distributors becoming more and more powerful. One of the reasons that distributors become more and more powerful is they are interacting more directly with the customers. That's why manufacturers are trying to sell directly to the customers in order to increase their relationship. And so if you think about it, every manufacturer that sells B2C, business to consumer, is also doing it B2B, selling it to the distributors. And so you, as a manufacturer, you have to be a B2B and a B2C. As a distributor, you may be more of a B2C than a B2B. And so you have more hats to wear when you're a manufacturer, and also you're selling depending on the distributor. So there's some kind of dependency that you have with the distributors. So the manufacturer are trying to go direct to the customers, and the distributor are trying to create their own brand. That way they can keep having this relationship with the customers. The quality is what differentiates the manufacturer, because they have the control of the quality that they sell, and they know what's real and fake quality. And so the distributors don't have this control because they're just selling what's available. The manufacturer has a reputation, they're contributing to the profit of the distributor. They have certain customers that follow them and are very loyal. Again, for the distributors, they have some of these characteristics: the loyal customers, the fact that they buy a lot from the manufacturer, and the manufacturer may be in a situation where the direct relationship that they have is mostly with distributors, and with 5-6 distributors, they are selling hundreds of thousands of products. So those distributors very fast become very important. They depend on them in order to survive. And the distributor biggest difference is the fact that they control the location where they are, which may have some bargaining power again over the manufacturer, because the manufacturer may be selling a product that is more sold in certain areas or certain time, which are more controlled by certain distributors. In the P of place for the marketing mix, there is the two very important distributors, which are the wholesaler and the retailer. First, the retailer includes all the activities involved in selling goods or services directly to final consumers for their personal, non-business use. So these retailers are primarily involved in selling to people that would buy it for their own use. When you're a retailer, you care about the product assortment. So how many type of models are you selling? The services that you offer in your premise, are you able to advise to the customers? And then the store atmospheres, which means, does it look more high-end? Is it tidy? Is it a small location? Is it a large location? How many variations do you have? Are you specialized? So there are classification of different retailers based on their retail organization, the amount of services that they offer, and again, the length, meaning the total number of units, the SKUs, it's also called SKUs, that they offer. There's also a question of the pricing, which is based on the type of margin that they have. Some retailers will have a low margin, some retailers will have a high margin. So you can see, for example, a company that everyone knows, which is Costco, that would be a low margin type of retailer who is also considered a wholesaler, but that's sort of a very unique type of perspective that Costco has, sort of being hybrid. So what kind of retailer do you know? the specialty store, department store, supermarket, convenience store, superstore. So there's many kind of variations of those retailers. And there's another one called hypermarket, which is 3 times, 5 times the size of a supermarket. It's sort of like a department store as well. What is wholesaling? It are all the activities involved in selling goods and services to those buying for reselling the product or for business use. They're primarily involved in wholesaling, and they are mostly selling to retailers or consumers that are going to be turning the product into something else, or they themselves selling to smaller wholesalers that will be doing sort of a half wholesaling. Why would you use a wholesaler? Well, you use a wholesaler because you need to sort of reach customers who are looking to buy a multiple amount of products within a certain category. So instead of going to each individual manufacturer in order to get 1 or 2 type of products, they would rather go to a wholesaler where they could get all the products. So instead of a supermarket going to a dairy farm just to buy the butter, they would rather go to a wholesaler where they're going to get the butter, the cream, and the milk, and the yogurt. And so it's the capacity of offering quite a large amount, but not as large as the farm, but for multiple categories of products within the same industry. They sell and promote your products. They buy in large quantities. They break these large quantities in assortments, which are directly meaningful for the retailers. They store the product, they transport the product, they will finance your product because they will buy it. The beauty with the wholesaler is someone that you will be sending invoices and not someone that will be sending you invoices, and you will send these people large invoices because they will buy large amounts. So it's going to be almost a manufacturer, a dream is to have the biggest wholesaler and have a wholesaler per territory. So that way they can have to be selling in multiple states or multiple countries by having a minimum of people that they interact with. That's great because it's sort of streamline what you're trying to do, but it's also dangerous because you may have less customers. So it's difficult for a manufacturer, but oftentimes that's what you do is you sell to these 15, 20 wholesalers, which represent hundreds of thousands of customers because their job is to bulk break to those markets, going down closer and closer to the consumers. They collect information about who's buying, what are the trends in order for you to look at these of innovation and eventually start thinking about what would be the next generation of products that you're doing. There are 3 types of wholesaler. There's the merchant wholesaler, which is independently owned business that takes title to the merchandise it handles. Then you have the manufacturer sales branch, which is the manufacturers is also eventually creating some hubs which are becoming wholesalers to sell to small wholesalers or directly to the retailers. And then the third is the broker agent who do not take title of the goods, but they just perform a sales function between various intermediaries. So usually you talk to brokers who have a specialty of working with a large retailer, and they talk to large manufacturers, and they're saving time for the retailer to look for all of these manufacturers because they look for brokers who are specialized in specific industry. And so they rely on these people to do their due diligence and bring to them some very good manufacturers. So what are the trends? The trend is that there's less and less wholesalers because the wholesalers are becoming organized into consolidated wholesalers. Maybe because the retailers are starting to become themselves wholesalers. Maybe because the wholesalers are deciding to go overseas and starting to look for opportunities outside of their turf. And then the wholesalers also have to survive are increasing the number of services. So a wholesaler is someone that doesn't want to give services. A retailer is someone that wants to give services. A wholesaler, traditionally, they want to give a good price. So their advantage is being at the right place at the right time with a large amount of products. So the retailers could use this as this mine of good products that they can sell at the right time. And if the wholesaler doesn't have the inventory, that's a big problem. But the problem is they're selling in very large quantities. And so sometimes the retailers won't buy from them because the minimum order is too high. So one of the typical things is they reduce their minimum order in order to sell to many more accounts, because the wholesaler is sort of like the manufacturer. They want to sell to fewer accounts because it's easier to manage fewer accounts. But with crisis and economy, they may have to sell less products, and therefore they are more willing to give the services of selling multiple times through the year versus one time. The marketing mix is made of 4 P's, and the last P that is oftentimes discussed is the P of promotion. However, that P should really be called communication. So integrated communication is the fact that you have to have one message through different methods of communication. The main methods of communication are advertising, public relation, direct marketing, personal selling, and sales promotion. Advertising is selling from an organization that is well identifiable, and it's clear that they're paying in order to communicate this message. Public relation is speaking to the consumers by offering content. So public relation people are creating content, they are disseminating content through social media, through direct marketing, through newsletters, through trade shows, exhibits, events, annual reports, through the media. And they are very much like sort of the journalists. They are not in sales. They're more of the news and media relationship, like a journalist that would work for the company. They're creating also elements of propaganda by offering free articles already created to the media, for the media to take these articles and create editorials. They are speaking to the investors. They are speaking to future investors. They're speaking to the local politicians and so forth. So they are very much people who are trained to manage crisis. They are people who are trained to manage rumors and so forth. So that's very, very important. And in fact, because of the social media taking all the space that it's taking now, this is a job that is very, there's a lot of work for the people that work in promotion marketing through the specific function of public relations. Direct marketing is creating a database and creating some specific incentives for that database, the people in that database for different times and different products in order to get them to hear about the product and eventually want to buy this product. Sales promotion is creating some short-term incentives for, again, using a specific database or using a specific period to a wide audience in order for people to want to buy the product. So it's 2 for the price of 1 just this weekend. Personal selling are the salespeople that work within territories. They are trained for specific products and they speak to their customers within this area. So advertising has 4 main objectives. One is to inform, making sure that you get consumers to be knowledgeable about the product. To persuade, making sure that they see your product as being superior and realizing that they may be needing it more than they think. Reminding, which is essentially just repeating information and persuasion. And then comparing is when you see that people are not knowing your product very much, they're knowing someone else much more, some other product much more. You sort of try to piggyback and become associated with this product and then show the differences between your product, showing that your product is superior to something that they know. And eventually you put yourself at the same level and above. And that sort of could accelerate people knowing about your product and having preferences for your product. It can also be dangerous because they may be, through this communication, talking about your competitors, hearing again about your competitors, and in fact, incentivizing the customers to buy your competitors because they hear it. Maybe they don't remember the message, they just remember the brand being mentioned. So it has some drawback to do comparative advertising. The method of communication is simple. There's a source that sends information and there's someone who is the recipient of this information. But in between, you have the message that is sent through a channel, and is received by the consumers. The idea is that you need to make sure that you speak the language of the consumer, and this is called encoding. So you encode the message with the information that is the information that generates a change for the consumers. Maybe it's the consumers want to hear about the prices. Maybe the consumers want to hear about the fact that this product is produced within a concept of fair trade. So if fair trade is very important for them, you will encode in the message the fact that you're doing fair trade within the channel that is a channel that is the one used by your target. So not everyone reads the Wall Street Journal. And so if your customers are reading the Wall Street Journal, that's the channel that you will be using. And decoding is therefore how much did they understand about the message, how much do they remember, and eventually did they respond by changing their attitude, or did they respond by remembering the communication, or did they respond even better by consuming your product or increasing their consumption of the product? And eventually, did they influence others in buying your product? The steps are that it's very important to understand who is your target. It's very important to understand which media do they go after. So there's different communications. The personal communication works better because it's personal, but it takes more time and it's more expensive. And the non-personal is it's wider, less expensive, but it has less impact. How do you measure a campaign of communication to see if it was effective or not effective? Well, you have first the communication effect is, do people remember the communication, which eventually indirectly will generate some sales, or directly you're getting a change in sales. So your communication is successful because people remember it, or because you've increased your sales. How do you set up a budget of communication? Is you look at what you can afford. Maybe that's the simplest method. That's one of the four. What can I afford? This year, I can afford $1,000 a month. So therefore, I can afford $12,000. The next one is the percentage of sales. If you want to increase your sales by 10%, maybe that means that you should increase your advertising or communication by 10%. However, it's not always that linear. Sometimes you have to increase more your budget than the number. So you increase your sales by 3%, but that means that you have to increase by 8% your budget. It's not always linear, but at least you can start from this perspective. Is you want to put as much effort on one side in order to get the outcome on the other side. The objective on task is the one of the four that is the most precise, which means that you're going to have to develop some specific objectives. You're going to have to develop some specific campaign to reach this objective, and then you're going to have to budget each one of the campaign, and then you're going to have a total of all the campaign, and that will make the cost. So another thing is you could do is you could say we want to spend $2 for each product in advertising because we want to increase the sales by 5%. And so before it used to be $1.50, now it's a 50 cents extra in order to increase the sales by a certain number. And so that's also an objective on task because it's being very precise of your investment per product in order to increase the sales. Oftentimes you cannot exact 100% derive the cost of the advertising or communication altogether per the amount of money that you spend on the product, because it depends. Is this product in what stage is this product? Is the product being introduced? So if it's been introduced, it's possible that the cost of communication will be much higher than if it's in the maturity level, which means that this product has a market share, is competitive, the price has been reduced, however, the number of products being sold are high. And then the last method of promotion budget setting is competitive parity. So you analyze and estimate how much your competitors are spending, and then you try to match your budget with what you feel is an evaluated is the total expense, annual expense of your competitors. In the marketing mix, you have 4 P's, and one of the P's, the P of promotion. The P of promotion should really be called communication. When I'm talking about this P of communication, I want to spend some time on sales promotion and public relations. When talking about the marketing mix, you have 4 P's, and one of these P's is promotion. In promotion, which should really be called the communication mix, you have sales promotion and public relations, and I want to discuss this separately. What is sales promotion? Sales promotion is a mass communication technique that offers short-term incentive to encourage purchase or sales of a product. It gives a reason for consumers to buy right now, and it stimulates previous, or you give stronger reasons for people to buy now. There are many methods, such as the samples, the coupons, the cash refund, premiums, advertising, specialty, price packs. You also have some events, sweepstakes, games, and contests, and opportunity to buy a product within a specific amount of time and a specific season and so forth. So many sales promotions that you can have. The tools are more like a push strategy type of persuasion, which is give the opportunity of the distributors to save by giving them more product for the same price, or a reduction of price, or a participation in their expenses. So the idea is that they have to spend money in order to promote your product. Maybe you help them promote your product, and they will be promoting more of your product. Maybe you encourage them to give more space in their store or on their website, and you have to give them something in order to stimulate them to do that. Maybe you want to look at how much they spend to advertise your product, or how much they spend to motivate their salespeople to talk about your product, and maybe you participate. So the idea is that they are talking to the wholesalers, or maybe to the consumers directly, or to the retailers, and you're just trying to have some kind of impact by having some promotions, some sales incentives in order for everyone to want to get your product. Public relations involve building good relationship with the company's various publics by obtaining favorable publicity, building up a good corporate image, and handling or heading off unfavorable rumors, stories, and events. Public relations is therefore in this working on this concept of goodwill. So for people to have a positive attitude of your company, you do this by creating all kinds of information, such as press relations, product publicity, public affairs, lobbying, investor relationships, and development. Development is by reaching out to new communities. It's very much, I find, a job which is becoming more and more popular because of social media. It's very much looking at building relationship with influencers and building opinion leadership. It's very much creating all of these rumors and propaganda around your company for your company to be seen as a good company. So the major tools are creating news, articles, content, speeches, special events, writing materials, and disseminating the materials to the media or to anyone, to bloggers and YouTubers and all of this. Creating information that has to do with the corporate identity, the fact that you are involved in the environment, the fact that you are trying to work on sustainability, and then creating public services activities is by working with the media, working with the politics, and creating all kinds of support, such as working on apps, content of apps, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, your website, in order to reach out to the consumers and for the consumers to be able to know who you are about. And so it goes beyond the concept of brand. It goes into the concept of the corporate identity for consumers to see that they're not just buying a product at a certain time. They are supporting this company's DNA and its mission in the environment. within the 4 P's of the marketing mix, there's the P of promotion. And one of the fastest growing element of promotion is digital communication. So this is easily explained through the concept of online marketing, which is the communication that is done through other options besides advertising, but which are connected to the internet. So websites are very important. And the idea is that you can create banners and create ads and that are connected to the type of people and make some connection between what are they watching and the information that you want to supply to them. So people do some search, people get relevant information after they've done search by providing information related to this. So eventually, you also can connect with people using emails, but there are many other options besides emails. So online marketing is very powerful because it can therefore give you the opportunity to be very specific to the customers. You can actually see what the customers do most of the time and find out if they looked at the information, the time that they spend looking at the information. You can put it within a specific situation, which is related to the rest of the information that they are looking at. And you can use some keywords based on relating to the search that they may be using. However, consumers may not pay attention to your information. They may be not looking at your ads, and you may have the feeling that they are looking at it and evaluating that they're spending a long time, where in fact they just skipped it. And so also there is the capacity for your online marketing campaign to be disrupted through hacking and vandalism. There are 7 key design elements of a website. There's the context, where how will it look, the form and shape, the specific information in terms of content, the type of community that you will belong and and also sort of overlap, the amount of customization and the fact that there will be interactivity between the website and the consumers, the method of communication that will be also used if you have links to other things and other external websites, and the fact that you can monetize and people are able to buy straight from the website. So social media is an important mean of communication that is connected on the internet and can be used in connection to your website. There are 3 key social media. There's the online forums, which are community area where people can exchange. You have the blogs, which are usually performed by influencers, or people actually have the opportunity to voice their opinion. And then you have the social network, which are creating a lot of word of mouth and exchange between the consumers. And there's the people that put the information and the people that look at the information. So it's sort of serving you because it's actually marketing your product without you paying for it. So social media is very important, but it's social media, there are various social media and they are constantly evolving. You cannot think that your communication campaign are just social media. You still need to use traditional methods of communication. And the more you get those traditional methods of communication supported by some social media, the more it's effective. So you're not supposed to do social media and nothing else, but you're supposed to still create websites, still create newsletter, still create some events. And then to support all of these, you can have social media. So that way you are much more complementary. Creating word of mouth and buzz is the main objective. That the main objective is to sell, but the other main objective is to reduce your marketing costs and to make your marketing more effective by having consumers also advertise for you or communicate for you. So, but to do this is you need to see who are the most influential people. You could provide samples to these influential people. You could help them in their community, or support the community, or participate in their community. But what's very important is to allow people to say what they think and to have as much interaction as you can with the consumers. However, there's always the risk that there may be some people who are negative, and you'll have to very much sort of monitor the negative people who may be, how can I say, honestly negative, or they could be paid to be negative. That's also very important. So when people you want people to provide information, and you want them to report, you want to use um, people's information and what their opinions in order to support what you're trying to do, and show that this business is not focused on making products, but it's focused on satisfying the customers, and more so focused on the relationship with the customers in order to learn from the customers in order to be better at satisfying them. Mobile apps are software that are available to download, and they're very much connected to the smartphone. So the mobile apps and the mobile marketing, it allows the consumer to be shoppers by themselves and use this mini size software in order to learn and get access to the product, and at the same time save you by being able to sell directly to the consumers without using intermediaries. The technology keeps evolving, and it's very important to be able to keep up with this technology and the benefits of this technology. So this mobile marketing allows you to work one-on-one with the customers. It's open 24/7, and it allows the consumers to buy straight. They may be looking at information, and while they're looking at information, they are seeing the things that they like or don't like, and when they see things that they like, they're able to learn more about it and to go specifically to provide their opinion, make some suggestions, or move into buying straight this product. So when you create apps, you have to be concise, because the less information, the better. And so there should be no more than 50% of the screen that has information, pictures or words. It should be a very short phrase. The brand should be small, but still visible. Not too many bright colors, and there should be a very clear call to action. There should be very few buttons, but there should be almost like 2 buttons. Want to learn more, want to get update on this product whenever there's update, or want to look at how to buy the product and even buy the product. So it should be 3 buttons, no more, and it's straight to the point in order to get consumers to action. And so that's very important in mobile marketing. Segmentation, targeting, and positioning is a very competitive tool that marketers have. It's called STP, or segmentation, targeting, and positioning, and it should be developed and processed and implemented in this order: S, then T, and then P. Most of the time, businesses actually do the opposite, which is PST. It's always S and T, so it can only be PST or STP. And so why is this? Because segmentation is dividing the market. How do you divide the market? You divide the market into using the most common factors that define who are the customers. Customers are defined by their culture, their social group, their personal factors, and then how they think, the psychological factors. Oftentimes, consumers are looked at on where do they live, what are their gender, what are their ages, how do they think, and why would they buy. So segmenting is essentially dividing, versus targeting is selecting which group you will focus on. The most difficult thing is not to select, the most difficult thing is to divide, because there's so many ways you could dividing people. So you have to try to be salient by using the fewer number of characteristics to divide, in order to not divide with too many characteristics, but because the more you add characteristics, the smaller the group, the customers group, potential group, eventually your target will be. So the less characteristics of segmentation, the better. But because we live in such a competitive environment, essentially we do have more and more characteristics oftentimes being added in order to go after a very specific group, or a more defined group with more precision. Once you've defined what are the characteristics to segment, you go into what are the type of targeting that you will be using. And so you look at the targets, the best targets are depending on the size of this segment. Obviously, you don't want to go after a tiny segment most of the time. Sometimes you won't, but most of the time you wouldn't want. You would want to go after segments that are very promising as well. And then it would also depend on your characteristic as a company. Can we serve? Who can we serve better? Which group seems to be growing, and which group we anticipate will continue growing, and that we have the capacity to serve. That's the best match with the type of product that we sell. This becomes your target, and once you've defined your target, you can think about the strategy of this target, which is we have several targets, but eventually our product could be sold to everyone. So our targeting strategy is called undifferentiated, which means that we're going to be going after all the different potential targets without separation. Concentrated is when you see that there are different groups, maybe there's men and women, but there's not enough difference between these two groups, that you will make this product for young men and young women without making a difference. Maybe you could have young men, young women, and older men, and that would be three groups, because with the older men and the young men, there would be no differences. But with the older women, maybe there are differences. So these targets could be used in order to sell this product. Differentiated is when you will see that you have many competitors, that you have limited resources, that maybe it's very important to increase the satisfaction because there's so much competition that you would want to make one product for one specific target. And in terms of corporate strategy, this is called niche or focus. This is what happened to the razor industry, where most of the razors for the longest time were made exclusively for men, and eventually women started using men's razors, and eventually the producers of razors started developing razors for women. So the target was all the men, and that's it. And eventually it was different men for different type of razors, and eventually it was different type of razors for different men and for the women. And then eventually there were different type of razors for different type of women. This company was started in China, and they were selling cheese, and nobody in China eats cheese beside the foreigners. So when this gentleman who lived a long time in Europe decided to make cheese in China, he could not sell any of the cheese because nobody of the Chinese were going to buy it. So eventually he did segmentation by looking at the different culture in China that were from overseas and where they were. So there were some Germans, there were some Belgians, there were some French, there were some Italians, and these people really care for the cheese. So he started finding out where they were, which city, which area of the city, which store did they go to, and eventually he created specific cheese, not the one that he liked the most, but the one that the targets we would like the most. And eventually he was able to go through production of cheese as being very differentiated for the different areas in China. And he became extremely successful because he used the STP model in order to develop. So P is for positioning. And like I said, most of the businesses do PST, which means that they start from what they should finish. Normally, the business, they care about who is the customers and what do they want. And there, when you do PST, you say, what do I want the customers to care? And then who are the customers? So it's a little backwards. So that's why STP is so much better. Positioning is creating an image, a meaning for the product to be understood by the consumers and in sort of against your competitors. So oftentimes you use the product attributes. What is the most biggest feature that is the most important and that they're looking for? When do they use the product? Who's buying this product? What are the competitors' features that are being put forward by them? And then what is this class of product and how do we want to associate ourselves with this product? Can we slightly change? You know, this is a beverage, yes, this is a beer, yes, but maybe this is a low calorie beer, and we're trying to not compete within the beer category, but within the low calorie beer category. So the right competitive advantage is the one looking at the one that are the most important. So the attribute, the best one, you don't want to take something that's trivial, you want to take the one that is the most important. However, the most important is oftentimes the one also used by your competitors. So why I go to a family resort like Disney or Knoxberry Farm is because I want to have fun. So this concept of fun could be the positioning, but the problem is all the results are somewhat using some concept around fun. So maybe I have to use something else. Therefore, I have to be distinctive. But then I have to be distinctive, but it can't be just different, and that doesn't make it better. It needs to be superior. It needs to be easy to communicate. It needs to get a reaction from the target, because when they hear it, they hear the difference, and it's meaningful difference. It needs to be affordable, because you can't come up with a positioning that it's so great that it's unbelievable, and then it's going to cost a fortune to implement and for the consumers to be able to buy, that you have sort of set yourself such a high bar that you never achieve. So positioning is explained by showing some kind of map of positioning. And if this map is proposed by the marketer, it's called a positioning map. However, if it's a map that is defined by the consumer, it's called a perception map. So the most common of this map, to explain it, not to use in business, because to use in business is too simple, but to explain it is price versus quality. So the positioning may be low price, positioning may be high price, the positioning may be high quality and low quality. And using this orthogonal matrix, you can put your brand of where you want your brand to be. That's a positioning map. If you give the matrix to a consumer and you ask the consumer to put various brands on this matrix, this becomes a perception map, because it's from the perception of the consumers. To summarize, is you have 3 steps. And again, the positioning should be the last step, where you define what are the characteristics of your consumers, because these are meaningful characteristics. And then you're looking at grouping these segments into what you will call the targets. Then you select the target, and then you come up with a meaningful identity for your brand that will get the target excited about your brand. In reality, I mean, this is how it's been taught. I think in reality, and this is my own personal perspective, is since I would say 90% of the business, maybe more, do PST, but yet the academics and the professional recommend to do STP. My personal perspective is it should be PSTP, where the companies start by looking at what they think their positioning should be, but that knowing that won't be the positioning that they will have at the end. Then they will look into the market of what the consumer wants, and then they will make an adjustment of the P, the original P. Because I think when you have a business, you should have, you're doing a business based on your own leadership, and your own leadership will have from the get-go some kind of positioning that you want to be meaningful to you before you think of the consumers. So I think PST is weak, but I think talking about STP from the get-go is sort of unrealistic. So I think the most realistic perspective is to think about PSTP as being what really everyone should do. So that way they don't ignore the reality of every business starting with their own image, and then looking for a customer, and then readjusting what their image should be in order to be more salient.